Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Make sure to like and subscribe to the channel for more interesting stories like these. Now, let's get into today's story video. Spouse is hiding conversation with a very close friend. In the United States, my wife and I have been married for almost 10 years. 2 children, young less than 7. So far, our marriage has been going well. Ups and downs as usual. We are still in the state where my wife has spent virtually her whole life. During her collegiate years, she formed several close connections. 3 of those buddies' wives are quite close to each other. Let us refer to them as RF, HM, and XM, brother and sister. X and RH and R stand for husband and wife. Now, during her undergraduate years, wife had a brief romance with X, and that was resolved, or not, before the graduation. X left the United States 10 years ago. HR and I used to reside in the same state and were quite close. We used to get together every weekend and have the nicest times. About 5-6 years ago, H and R decided to leave the United States to assist X with his company. R's wife has been a very good friend of his. Since H and R relocated out of the country, the wife hasn't developed any close friends. This has had a wide-ranging impact on her life. To summarize, all RH and X have elected to return to the United States in the last 6 months. RH has 2 children, about the same age as ours, and X is now married to J and has 2 children as well, similar age to ours. So as soon as the news arrived, my wife became really pleased that her friends were returning. They are performing progressive movements in which H and X relocate here, first to find/set up a place to reside, and then the mothers move with their children. So X arrived in the United States around 2 months ago. When he came to visit us, we gave him a place to stay for a few days until he found a place or decided where he wanted to live. H arrived 3 weeks ago, and they HR and XJ opted to remain in a separate state, since H already found a job there. We invited H and X to spend 4-5 days with us at our house last week. We could spend time together and reminisce about former times. H and X came with us. During this time, I sensed extremely strong feelings between X and my wife. My wife went shopping, had her hair done, and so on. In the days leading up to the arrival of H and X, I had no reason to suspect anything. But on Friday morning, I strolled into X's room and discovered my wife hugging him, while X was in bed. X was sitting on his bed with his laptop, attempting to attend an online lesson. They were astonished when I went in, and X said, "Can you kindly check my temperature? Am I feeling feverish?" And my wife played along just to see what would happen. This experience raised a lot of red lights for me. I didn't tell my wife about the encounter immediately away. It was nevertheless worrying me. On Friday and Saturday, none of them, wife or X, approached me to explain the issue. Both, though, seemed to be on high alert. H and X drove up to the state where they are settling down on Sunday morning. I addressed my wife about the event on Sunday afternoon. She explains that she had just given X a warm embrace. I inquired, why on bed? To which she agreed that maybe being in bed was improper, and that it drives me to believe whatever I'm thinking. I also informed her that I sensed really strong vibrations between you and X, and that there were occasions when I felt I wasn't required around throughout the visit. Wife denies anything is going on. I tell my wife that the only thing I can do is accept her employment, since nothing else is happening at this time. H and X arrived at their final destination state on Sunday evening. Sunday evening, I confronted my wife once again about her continued communication with X. The wife denies. I can see texts being sent, but my wife continues deleting them. Wife believes that the conflict between us is solely between us. But everything has been told to X to figure out how to handle the problem. Monday, I approached my wife once again, explaining that I have a strong suspicion that I am being lied to. Wife denies and maintains that there is nothing. I inquire once again whether they are in any way connected. Wife says that X called to notify her of something, and that's all there is to it. However, in the morning, back and forth texts are exchanged and removed. Wife is plainly concealing touch in conversation with X. I'm not sure what more is in this bucket of worms. Any advice, opinions, or recommendations on how to proceed? I want to offer you one more and last opportunity tomorrow to come clean about your back and forth texting and contact. Update 1. I was able to get insight into some of the removed material. Not all of them. But something tells me that X is continually directing his wife to maintain the pretense that nothing occurred. Asks her to keep saying, "Give more attention to me. Don't speak to him too much," and so on. Keeps reassuring that everything would be well in due course. and we'll make it right, ex and wife. I was also able to corroborate that the wife attempted to phone ex twice, but he was not accessible at the time. After a few hours, ex calls back, and they have a 3-minute conversation. I'm thinking about everything my wife has attempted to persuade me of, and I'm still not convinced. My wife also requests that ex check with someone to see whether deleted texts may be recovered and so on. At this point, I'm certain that I'm hiding for a larger cause. I'm not sure about the physical, but one thing is certain, emotional. Furthermore, a network of falsehoods is never little. If so much effort is being spent in concealing anything, I'm not sure what the box of chocolate contains. Now I have to find out what I'm going to do. I've always been a kind person. That's when the NG inclinations set in. There are 2 critical points: children, too young currently; wife, as I've known her for 10 years. Her pre-existing medical ailments will worsen, causing more emotional and physical suffering, all while she tries to cope with everything on her own. Ex will provide emotional support, maybe, but ex will not sacrifice family for my wife. I am positive of that. Yet there was a line that was crossed knowingly. I can't put 2 and 2 together. Update 2. There are a lot of roller coasters today. However, in the conclusion, it becomes so absurd that I begin to chuckle and feel released from my NG tendencies of making every effort to keep this relationship. As previously said, I have access to the communications being exchanged. However, they keep erasing the messages, thus I am unable to capture them all. Throughout the day, calls and texts are exchanged, and it seems that X is attempting to persuade his wife not to contact him in order to preserve the marriage. Wife obviously says, I can't let go of either. Wife says she can't simply shut off her emotions for X at some point. The wife blames X twice. First, if X had not thrown them together in the past, during college days, they would not be in this circumstance. 2. Later that evening, he informs X that he should not have come to the U.S. and should have gone to another nation to settle, and that the scenario would not have been the same. There has been a lot of back and forth, and I'm not sure whether I have access to calls. X continues to persuade his wife to show me love, affection, and attention, while avoiding touch with him. Regardless, here comes the juicy part, and the most freeing part for me. Following X's advice, wife's tone of voice changes, and she attempts to demonstrate love. At some time in the late afternoon, before I finish work, COVID, work from home, my wife wraps her arms around me and makes some lovey-dovey talk. I was so absorbed in my business email that I failed to entirely conceal their communications that I was monitoring. After a few minutes, my wife inquires as to why my messages are appearing on your screen. I adjusted and handed over control of my laptop to reassure her that nothing was wrong. She inquires, and I inform her that there is nothing, as well as displaying everything on the laptop that is open. Nothing. I needed to leave straight away for a kid's activity and to pick up supper. While I'm away, messages and sometimes phone conversations are exchanged between my wife, and ex-wife only leaves texts indicating that they are discussing my having misunderstandings about them. When I go home, my wife asks whether her messages are still on my laptop, and I assure her that they are. When my wife asks why, I tell her that it's because you're plainly concealing what's going on. Wife takes it all in, digests it a little, and then we all sit down to eat supper when the kids are hungry. Wife is still undergoing treatment. There were some tears. Wife inquires, so, what do you find? I respond, you've been deleting texts, so I don't know. Now, wife is digesting this as well. Finishes supper soon and begins exchanging texts. I don't have a point of view, but I'm sure that messaged late at night and erased everything but what I needed to see. Wife has also begun to take an angry stance towards me, blaming me for breaching her private. Wife has been using anger to take control in every circumstance for as long as she can remember. This whole event has really helped me make the definite conclusion that it is now just kids and me. It's remarkable to witness how people, ex and wife, merely go through the motions in such settings and how the fogged eyesight obscures so much of what they can see.